Picture that office. Dennis, leaning back with that smirk. Nina, sweeping in like she owned the building. If you can still see the inside of Blush, magazine Just Shoot Me never really left you. It's been over 20 years since that final episode. The people behind those characters have lived entire new lives, and some of their paths will catch you completely off guard. That show wasn't trying to be groundbreaking. It just made the room feel better. And the people who filled that office have stories that deserve to be heard. I'd love to know who you use to watch this show with. A roommate, a parent, a late-night rerun after a long shift. Those small memories are what this channel is built on. And if we're stepping back inside Blush magazine, there's only one entrance that matters. You could hear her before you saw her. Heels on tile. A pause in the doorway. Nina Van Horn didn't walk into a room. She arrived. Wendy Malik gave Nina a fearlessness that stayed with people. In a world that constantly reminded women their value had an expiration date, Nina refused to shrink. She was vain, sure, ridiculous sometimes, but she never apologized for taking up space. For a lot of viewers, that mattered more than any punchline. Most fans didn't know Malik had been a Wilhelmina model in the 1970s, before leaving fashion to work on Capitol Hill. For a U.S. congressman. She traded the runway for politics, then politics for the stage. Nina Van Horn wasn't a stretch. It was a homecoming. She was 46 when she first played Nina. Today, at 75, she's aging with incredible grace. You can find her on Apple TV's Shrinking alongside Harrison Ford, 3 seasons in, and already renewed for a 4th. That same presence, that same timing, still landing every beat. Elliot DiMauro would stroll onto the set, camera slung over one shoulder, flirting with anything that moved. And somehow, you rooted for him anyway. Enrico Colantoni played the smoothest guy in the room, while quietly being the most vulnerable. Elliot was the friend who looked like he had it all together. The charm, the swagger, the easy grin. But underneath, he was searching, just like the rest of us. He made it easier to admit that nobody really has it figured out. Here's what most fans never knew. The suave Italian photographer, he's Canadian. Born in Toronto, trained at Yale School of Drama. His character even refused to visit Canada on the show. Real life writing its own punchline. He was 34 when he first played Elliot. Today, at 63, he wears every year beautifully. And his career since is staggering. Keith Mars on Veronica Mars, Mathesar in Galaxy Quest. Right now he's starring in Ballistic, appearing on Suits LA, and performing on stage at Chicago Shakespeare Theater, opposite Terry Hatcher. He might be the busiest actor you forgot to follow. But he wasn't the only one at Blush who turned out to be full of surprises. Every sitcom has a center of gravity. On Just Shoot Me, it was the man behind the desk. Jack Gallo wasn't the sharpest boss on television, but he was the one you wanted to work for. Underneath the ego and the ridiculous decisions, there was a father who was trying. He didn't need to be perfect. He just needed to show up. George Segal brought that effortlessly. Before Blush, he'd earned an Oscar nomination opposite Elizabeth Taylor in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? A leading man of the 70s. By the time he found this show, Hollywood had already moved on. Just Shoot Me brought him back. Most fans never knew he was a serious banjo player who performed at Carnegie Hall in 1981. The man contained multitudes. He was 63 when he first played Jack. He left us in March 2021 at 87. but not before finding one more role the country adored. Pops Solomon on the Goldbergs. 8 seasons as everyone's favorite grandfather. The show's creator said it simply: George was a kid at heart with a magical spark. That kind of spark doesn't fade just because someone's gone. And then there was the mail clerk. Kevin Liota wasn't trying to be cool. He delivered packages, muttered odd things, and claimed to be Ray Liotta's cousin. He was the weirdo who made it okay to be one. He wasn't supposed to steal scenes. He did it anyway. Brian Posehn was 33 when he first shuffled into Blush. Today, at 59, that same offbeat edge hasn't dulled a bit. He co-wrote 45 issues of Marvel's Deadpool, recorded a metal album with members of Slayer and Anthrax, and he's still touring stand-up across the country right now. The mail clerk became a Renaissance nerd. If any of these faces are bringing you back to a couch you haven't sat on in years, you're not alone. There's more ahead, and I think you'll want to stay for it. She didn't arrive until the final season. By then, Blush was already built. The rhythms were set. And into that walked Vicki Costa, not asking permission to belong. Rina Sofer brought something fresh to a show that didn't know it needed it. Vicki reminded viewers that new doesn't have to mean threatening. Sometimes change just makes the room bigger. What most sitcom fans never realized was that Sofer was already a legend somewhere else. She'd won a Daytime Emmy at 26 for playing Lois Cerullo on General Hospital, then spent 9 years as Quinn Fuller on The Bold and the Beautiful. 2 iconic soap opera characters, both played by the woman who showed up as the new girl on a Thursday night comedy. She was 34 when she joined the show. Today, at 57, she radiates the same warmth decades later. She returned to General Hospital in 2023 after 26 years away. She wrapped that chapter in late 2025 and has since settled in New York for a calmer life with her family. Not every story needs a spotlight at the end. There are still 2 faces left, and one of them is the reason a lot of people tuned in every single week. Close your eyes. You're back in the Blush lobby. Dennis Finch is behind that desk, feet up, already 3 insults into the conversation. You're smiling before he finishes the line. David Spade made Dennis the sharpest voice in the room. Not the loudest, but the one who said what you were thinking and somehow got away with it. For viewers biting their tongues at work all day, Dennis was a release valve. He spoke for all of us. Spade was already well known before the role. Saturday Night Live, Tommy Boy, alongside his closest friend, Chris Farley. When Farley passed in 1997, the same year this show premiered, Spade poured himself into work that landed harder than anyone expected. He was 33 when he became Dennis Finch. Today, at 61, he's more striking now than ever. His podcast, Fly on the Wall with Dana Carvey, won Best Comedy Podcast in 2025, and this April, he and Theo Von released Busboys, a film they wrote and financed entirely on their own. No studio backing, just 2 comedians betting on the joke. 30 years later, still the funniest person at the desk. But there's one more face. The one who held this entire show together, and her story is the one I've been saving. There's a reason she's last. Maya Gallo was the center of everything, the moral compass in a building full of beautiful chaos. She was the smart woman in a room that didn't always value smart. For viewers who knew that feeling, Maya wasn't just a character. She was proof you could be principled, stubborn, and lovable all at once. Laura San Giacomo, was 34 when she stepped into that role. But she'd already left a mark most people never connected. Her film debut was Steven Soderbergh's Sex, Lies, and Videotape, the Palme d'Or winner at Cannes. A year later, she played Kit DeLuca opposite Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman. She was a movie star. And then she chose television. The reason was personal. Her son Mason was born with cerebral palsy. San Giacomo wanted steady work and to be present. Just Shoot Me gave her that. She gave it everything in return. After the show, she starred in Saving Grace and became a familiar face as Dr. Grace Confalone on NCIS from 2016 to 2024. Off-screen, she's spent years with the Chime Charter School, advocating for children of all abilities to learn side by side. Today at 63, time has only deepened her elegance. She's selective now, choosing what matters, living a life built around the things that always came first. Maya stood her ground on screen. Laura did the same thing off it. But we can't close this story without honoring the heart at its center. George Segal spent 60 years making people laugh, not with spectacle, with honesty. He could walk into a scene and make you believe everything would be fine. George Segal left us in March 2021 at 87. In 2017, on his 83rd birthday, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was overdue, but the best things usually are. He was part of our living rooms across 2 generations, and in every frame, he made it feel like home. 7 seasons, 7 lives that kept going long after the credits rolled. Just Shoot Me was never the flashiest show on television. It was just the one that felt like yours. Nina's sweeping through a doorway somewhere right now. Dennis never did leave that desk. And Jack Gallo is the boss we'll always wish we'd had. So let me ask you this. When you think of Just Shoot Me, who comes to mind first? Not the character, the person sitting next to you. I'd love to read that memory. There are more stories like this one waiting, more faces, more nights we used to know. Until next time, hold on to that feeling.